So
Sounds good.
first, I will start by welcoming everybody and our guests to the Visiting Filmmakers series online, curated by Associate Program Director Cynthia Fuchs. The Visiting Filmmakers series has brought films and artists to the Mason campus for 20 years. In its new incarnation, the series brings these artists to your home screens, as we are now. The Visiting Filmmakers series online is sponsored by Film and Video Studies, CHESS, CVPA, the English Department, the School of Art, Global Affairs, and Global Programs, CVPA's Christos series, Arts in Context, University Libraries, Film and Media Studies, the Interdisciplinary Curriculum Committee, History and Art History, University Life, and Women and Gender Studies. Whoo, that's a lot of dialogue there, people.
Yes.
Yes.
Today's guests are our FABS alumni, Katy Crain, wave Katy, and Erblin Nushi. Hey, Erblin.
Hi.
Both of whom graduated from Mason in the FABS program. In 2018, Katy was a producing concentration and Erblin was a directing concentration. Katy Crain was born and raised in Illinois and moved to Virginia right after graduating to earn her degree at Mason. While in school, Katy freelanced as a production assistant. Her first job was on Ava DuVernay's 13th, which is Oscar and Emmy winning. Katy has also worked on Brain Dead, Jason Bourne, Late Night with Seth Meyer, Veep, and many, many more that Katy will mention here. And right after graduation, Katy started as an on-set office PA on Wonder Woman 1984, which will be coming out this year. And that has led to Katy's current career, which we will go into. Erblin Nushi was born in Peja Kosovo, a beautiful country nestled in the mountains of the Balkans. Erblin started acting at 10 years old and earned their BA degree from George Mason University with a concentration in directing and a minor in photography. Their short film BINI won multiple jury prizes and audience awards, as well as a regional Emmy, and was nominated for a Student Academy Award. Big bravo and cheers. Erblin is currently directing their first feature film entitled I Love You More, which so far has been awarded funding from the Kosovo Cinematography Center, the Albanian National Cinematography Center, and is sure to get much more soon.
Let's hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. All right, welcome, guys. I'm so happy that you're here. So we're going to start with Katy today because Katy is actively working in a very time-sensitive job, and Katy has a 1-hour time block to deliver all this information and ask questions. I'm not saying Erblin has to wait a full hour, but I want
I'm not waiting.
I figured, but I'm sure. Let's start with Katy. So, Katy, the topic of today's discussion is what were the most essential things that you learned in film school? What substantive information or process information or even personal, interpersonal, whatever the word is, dynamic information that you learned in film school at Mason that has served you well going out, and what are you doing now?
Okay, so currently I'll FYI, Lisa kind of mentioned I'm currently on the clock, so if I all of a sudden have to jump, it's because I have a phone call I'm answering, but I'll mute and try and come back. So apologies if that happens. But yeah, so currently Lisa left off with I went and worked on Wonder Woman right after graduation. I worked on that set for basically the entirety of summer that it was there. And then from there, I networked on set, which is one of the things I learned at Mason, was to network and how to network, and also how to find niche ways to make myself valuable, where they can't let me go, or they have to keep me on, or they'll want to work with me in the future, is to learn how to make myself valuable to the production or to the company. So from there, I network. Huh?
How did you figure out what would make you valuable and how to implement it without overstepping your position?
Um, so initially when I started freelancing in school, during school, I realized no one wanted to be in charge of paperwork on set. So all the start paperwork that the crew had to fill out, putting it together, collecting it at the end of the night, making sure it's all filled out correctly, and then having to chase people down. No one ever wanted to do that, but it has to get done. And I know it has to get done almost every day because we have new people coming and going. So I learned that no one wanted to do that. Therefore, I was like, I'll learn how to do this. So I learned how to do the start paperwork and then I got really good at it. So that made me good at paperwork in general. So I think that helped me in set because then I was very organized. I knew how to do the start paperwork. I knew a lot of the crew. I knew how to connect to different departments of the crew because the G&E guys are very different from the camera guys, from all these other people, other departments from the arts. So I learned how to network and how to kind of be a chameleon amongst the different crew members and how to interact. So I learned that. And then when I was on set for Wonder Woman, they needed someone to make all the badges. And I was the only one who was like, I'm going to sit and learn the badge machine because it is so finky. And I was the only one who knew how to work it. So when the days were off, I was getting calls from the other PAs, from the production coordinator, being like, can you tell us how to fix this? And I would have to go through, like, I pulled up a manual and learned the manual of like that badge machine. So then they had to keep me on it. I knew how to do it. And then I was so organized at it that they stopped the other PAs. I love them, but they stopped the other PAs from doing a lot of the badge work because I was so organized and knew the system so well. And I knew the procedures of like, okay, this has to get approved by these people. Therefore, that then put me in touch with the director's assistant, the producer's assistant, the production coordinator, the production manager. That put me then in touch with like the junior producers and associate producers where I was talking to them on a daily basis about approvals, which is how I met Elise Iglesias. And then from there I met like because I became close with those assistants and they invited me to like the wrap party. So I went and that's where I met kind of the full producers and I was there with the director, with Patty, and I got to talk to her. And then from there I talked to Elise because she's 26, 27. And she's already an associate producer on this big film. So I was like, I'm gonna pick her brain and figure out how she did it. And she liked me so much that she then said, hey, you took interest in me, I'm going to take interest in you, and I would like you to submit your resume. And I got hired as the receptionist first and worked my way up to the facilities coordinator position at Atlas. And I was there for about a year, almost 2 years. And I realized that I love my company, but there was no room for me to further grow. All the assistants were new. So I started applying for assistant positions at agencies because everyone said that's the route you should take. It's a big networking opportunity. So that's what I did. And now I currently am an assistant to Santini Reali at Creative Artists Agency, which is one of the top premier agencies in the industry. And he works in the TV alternative department. So that's anything not scripted, competition shows, documentaries, docu-series, all of it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So if we're to kind of sum up what you just explained, you basically had the opportunity to work in an entry-level position and you looked around and said, where's there a need? I'm going to learn it. I'm going to take initiative, learn it, be really good at it, make sure it's done right, make sure it's serving the purpose of those above me, and go ahead and take initiative and implement things that you learn as opposed to sitting there and waiting for somebody to come and ask you to do something.
Yeah, and that's something I learned at Mason through the film lab and just different producing senior projects or producing projects in general or working on student projects is that like no one's going to tell you what to do once you're making your own project. You're going to have to figure it out and you're going to have to do it yourself and you have to be good at it. So you need to, and then being a producing student, I then had to look at where all the needs were as the film as a whole and either fill them myself or get someone to fill them. And being in those top positions, I kind of learned that it is like they really do appreciate it, even if they don't show it. I don't necessarily say it all the time, is that they do appreciate it and they do show it. Um, and I think that was one of the things that like I looked at my other two PAs in the office with me and I knew their organization maybe wasn't the best. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the most organized with all these files, all this paperwork that they don't want to do. They don't want to do the NDAs. They don't want to have to scan them, alphabetize them, put them in a log. They don't want to have to do that. So I'm going to do it because then they need me to do it because they don't want to fall behind again. And it's a big thing for that set to have at that time was NDAs. And that's something I learned at Mason was you just have to look around and be very aware of your surroundings. And if an opportunity comes to take it and not say no and just go for it and be very positive. That was the one thing is like one of
But
the
look
things they
around
loved.
and be positive in the service of the collective, meaning to support the people above you and to make their job easier by doing all of yours without having to be dependent on them to do it. And then reaching up and saying, hey, I'll take this, I'll take that off your plate to free them up so they can continue to free up the chain.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a lot of like, you just have to be very aware of what's happening around you and you have to be positive. And I think the other thing I learned was that, and it's good advice to move forward, is just to keep your mouth shut and to learn. Because the moment you start complaining and you may not hear, you're not complaining in front of your main boss, it's going to get back to them. And I think being at Mason has taught me that as well, is that just learn and be quiet because there's people around you that are very knowledgeable on what's happening. And the best way you can always help them and be less and help them be less stressful, therefore you be less stressful, is to help, like Lisa said, be like the support system and just be very positive about it. And then I think another thing like recently that came up being an assistant at an agency is I do have the opportunity to sit and learn on conversations. So I'm on phone calls all the time, but I also get given a lot of responsibility with contracts and making sure I'm handling the client's money, doing the booking reports. Um, but there was a situation where my boss was traveling and didn't have service, and I was handling a contract or handling travel and some expenses for glam and stuff like that for a client for the Oscars, and which was very high pressure, high stake. And the lawyers got involved, everyone gets involved. And my boss had emailed and said, oh, this looks good. I'm looping in my office to confirm that the travel expenses in the contracts were all written correctly. And I had to sit and read and understand. And that was something I learned from Lisa was the contracts and being able to fully understand what level of detail needs to go in. And that detail and the words that you choose are very precise for a reason. They're simple words, but they're precise words. And so I was able to sit and confidently read and be like, well, how detailed? Because this says this, but it needs to be this. And I was able to confidently like hold
Can
myself.
you give us an example of the difference in the language? I don't know if you remember it, but
Yeah, it was as simple as a suite style hotel room or a standard hotel room. And I was like, well, they said it was going to be a suite, and this contract is saying a standard hotel room for these many nights. And and I was like, but how detailed do you need it to be? Because this is what they've said to me in emails and writing, meaning them being the production company that's running this particular person's deal. And so it was that, and then learning as simple as like if it's first class, if it's business class, if it's premier class, or if it's economy flying class, it needs to be that specific and learning and be like, okay, well, yes, they're paying for this flight to LA, but they're not paying for the flight home to LA. There was a different reason for that, but they had the dates mixed up on which day they were covering the flight and the limo and the travel and all of that in between. So I had to go and clarify and be like, no, this is wrong, this is right. And so just understanding like the difference between a suite and a standard can make a difference for our client and how many days they're staying and just
And
the
that's
level.
a really good example of, even though we have these contracts written by lawyers and you have the representatives of the production company sending emails with the kind of loose conversational language of what's supposed to be given, how that's translated into the contract by the lawyers, you, Katy, didn't just assume that because the lawyers sent it over, that it was correct. You went and made sure that you were diligent enough to check all the details because you were the last set of eyes able to look at it before it was signed and sent off.
Yeah. So I think because I learned how to read and write contracts at Mason and taking that away and understanding the business side of deal making, I was able to like confidently hold my own with my agent and these lawyers at the same time and be able to
Exciting.
confidently explain things. Yeah, I was like, oh gosh, thank God I learned this. I texted Lisa right after. I was like, thank you for teaching me contracts.
A
Because
plus, A plus.
yes, because it was very much like, oh, he's in Mexico. He has no service currently. Like I am by myself having to do not one but two different contracts for different clients, and don't mess it up. It's the Oscars.
Right. All right, so let's turn to our favorite director, Erblin Nushi. Oh.
Yay!
What an introduction.
Erblin, you have so many exciting things going on. I know we're kind of in COVID waiting period right now with your first feature, but tell us what's going on, how you approach this, and what skill sets you've been utilizing to make this happen.
Um, well, as you mentioned, the whole COVID thing has really taken a toll on me. It's been it's been an interesting time for everybody, but I've just a month ago, it feels like years ago, I had a running company, a movie on early pre-production, my first feature film, which is kind of a big deal to do so early, right after college, because I was just in LA a year ago and I was doing Uber and hustling like everybody else, trying to figure out the
We're
navigate the
also working
industry.
at Outfest.
Yes, I also worked at Outfest for almost a year as I was an intern and then slowly assisted them with programming and things like that. But
Outfest
um,
is the Los Angeles Queer Film Festival.
yes, and I met a lot of great people through Outfest. I went to a lot of parties because that's what part of filmmaking is, meeting people at parties, at events, and networking, which is something that you don't learn in the books, but we are definitely put in those environments through our film at Mason showcase every semester where people come, you meet people, and then the recent alumni events that Mason puts up, that you get to meet different people and go through festivals. I know when I had my film at like two Best of Favs programs, we would go to festivals, and that's what that was about, going to these festivals, meeting people. And I think those really prepared me, because when I went to LA and I was just kind of thrown out there in the real world, um, the whole student academy thing happened just a month after I moved there, and I didn't even have a job or anything, and then I was attending red carpet events with no money in my pocket. And I was just I went to Santiago and got me a cheap suit, and I was just rocking the runways, but I had no idea what was going on, because it was a lot happening all at once, and nothing really prepares you for it. Um, and then it kind of just I started realizing, and I had hoped that I'd taken more classes. That's the thing that I learned kind of from this whole experience, is that I wish I wasn't just focused on that one thing I wanted to do, which was directing. I really wish that I had taken another writing class and other classes, um, to push myself. But I'm a determined person, and I kind of wanted it that way. And I told my advisor Lori, I really want to just do directing. But I hope I wish I had a feature written by the time I was going through these festivals, because everybody kept asking me what's next or what do you have going on now, and I had nothing going on. There was about 6 months period after I finished my while I was in my internship, which was the last thing I did for school, where I could have written a film, but I was too busy and going through depression because my film wasn't getting anywhere. I'm talking about BINI. It wasn't getting into festivals, and I was like, oh, this film that I really care about is not doing anything. And then when I should have been writing something, getting something ready, because then it just happens. And then after 6 months of waiting and getting rejections, I got about 30 rejections before the Student Academy Awards. And then after that, went to over 25 festivals. And then it's like you have no time to write, because then you're just like, and it takes a lot of time. You pretty much go on tour. I didn't go to all of the festivals because I had just moved to LA. I couldn't afford to go to all the festivals because it costs money and you have to pay. Some festivals, you can ask them if they can cover, um, you know, a screening fee, which so late learned from our program director, Giovanna, that I could ask. I didn't even know I could ask. Um, that you can get sometimes screening fees, which helps, but also sometimes it would pay for my hotel or a plane ticket. It depends where the festival is, but most you don't really get anything for short films. It's just great to go and be there. Once you make the film, yes, it's about people watching it, but this is how you continue what you want to do. It's by attending these festivals, because you meet very important people there that will watch your film and then see something in you and want to invest in you. And this is how these connections are made. It really doesn't, you know, going to school for me was learning and finding my voice, uh, tuning my craft and giving me all the tools I needed to do everything, the proper way, and learning the history of film and learning everything about film. But once you're out in the real world, it's all, luck pretty much. And you have to be at the right place at the right time. You have to sell yourself 24/7, whoever you meet. I always remember the no humble zone from Giovanna. They would always say that, don't sell yourself short. You have to always, um, you know, pitch yourself, because you never know who's listening or what they want from you. So I would always just put myself out there, even though I was shy at first, but then I would meet people that do it so well and go far, and their work is not that great, and I'm like, oh, I could do that 10 times better. So I just started, mentioning these things. It's not about bragging. Bragging and just talking about things you've done is two different things. Because in the industry, things like the Oscars or the Emmys or these things that even Katie mentioned, these are important because it's a universal language, and everyone in the film industry knows what an Oscar is. So when you're associated with things like this, it doesn't, it's not like I'm bragging if I walk into a room and then next thing you know, I'm saying, oh yeah, I was nominated for a Student Academy Award. It's just to put, place me and place me in their mind that like, that I did something or, I don't, what I
Those
mean.
those accolades open doors.
Right.
So a lot of times when distributors or financiers or producers are going to film festivals, they do want to ask, what else do you have? What's your next project? What are you working on? And I think what you mentioned about don't get too caught up in your emotions. So 6 months go by and you could have written a script in 6 months time, and instead, if you're thinking about like, oh, why didn't I get into that festival or that festival, and you're like turning to ice cream sundaes and cakes
Oh, I
instead
see.
of instead of the script, it's maybe not the best use of your time. However, that was also a really good teachable moment for you too, to realize, oh wow, should really just stay focused and not let these small disappointments derail me, because big accolades or even big adjacent accolades are important, and they do open doors, and it's not about bragging and saying I'm better than you are. It's about saying something that will open the ears of somebody who might be able to help you with your next project.
Right. And I mean, even the accolades, like winning these things and going to all these festivals, it still is not gonna, just give you everything you want. Like you still have to work. I still work every day. The moment I stop is when things stop. It's really interesting because that whole experience really opened my eyes on a lot of things about the industry, especially since I was in LA. I was living the dream that I always wanted to live there and, going to all these events, meeting all these people and doing film stuff. It lasted about 2 months, and then once the winners were announced, and I wasn't one of the winners, everything stopped.
And
And it's
that's really important to highlight, that when you're nominated before the winners are announced, that is your key promotion period. Because if you win, then that's a new promotion period for yourself, to brand yourself, to brand your film, to brand your production company. But if you don't win, you still have that window of opportunity to make as much headway and press and elevate your visibility to the point where it can open new doors.
right. I mean, and I was told that, our senior thesis film is, like the way I would get it described is like our business card. And, we get out into the world with that film. So I would urge all the students to really put everything onto that project, because it is that, what launches you. Whatever you do with your senior film is going to be the most important, thing you've done in school. And think about that story from day one when you start school and start preparing for it so that you can be, more prepared for it, and don't settle for anything small. I flew a whole crew to, another country, and I um went all out because I knew this was going to be important for me, and because the story was important, but also just because, you know, it's what I want to do. I don't have anything else I want to do. So I wanted to do everything to the maximum I could. And it paid off in a lot of different ways. You know, it was great during those 2 months period when the phone kept ringing every day. I was reached out by Darren Aronofsky's company, and they were interested to have me come on board to work at their company for. They were starting a new marketing and commercial uh, part, and then also write films that they would package, and then if Darren feels like he wants to direct it, he would take it on, or then I could go on and, you know, shop it around myself. Um, it didn't happen, but you know, it's things like that that really you know, from that person you meet someone else, and then it's like that, you know, just alone for Darren to know my name is pretty impressive.
It's huge, right? It's really exciting. And that was all from the Student Academy Award nomination for BINI, right?
Which without the school it wouldn't happen because you
And
need to be a student.
I think it's important to point out too, Erblin, as a directing concentration, your senior film is your calling card, like you said. Whereas Katy, as a producing major, um, it's the resume that Katy's built, the number of jobs that Katy has done, the experience, not just on student films, but on professional films. There's so much that happens on a professional film, protocol wise and everything else, that teaches you what you need to do to get to the next level, even the next level as a PA. And we all start as PAs. So there's no jumping the gun there.
Right.
I also think like keeping the network you build at Mason with you as you move through. Erblin and I met through Lisa because he needed a producer on a short for the last minute, and ever since then we've worked together, been friends, and had a good working relationship. And when I moved to LA, he was already there, so we were both able to take each other to events. You know, like I took Erblin to our Christmas party at Atlas Entertainment where he was able to meet not only producers, but managers and all the assistants. Um, so I think like you have to also remember to keep the network you have at Mason and keep those relationships growing because you never know where people are going to end up and what connections they'll be able to have in the future to help you. Or
You've also kept in touch with Amanda, one of my grad students from Howard, who's now in LA and at Disney. And you and Amanda meet up all the time and talk too.
yeah, we're able to bounce. Me and Amanda are able to talk a lot too because we're both producers and want to be producers and are able to talk about our experiences. And she was in an agency, now she's at Disney, and so we're both able to go back and forth. And you know, Urban was talking about like not getting caught up in those emotions. I still had the same thing when I was searching to for new jobs and assistant positions. It took me like a solid 2 months of like every day I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on these agency websites, putting my resume out, looking at mailroom jobs, like things that were kind of like I'd already worked past, but having to possibly go backwards and feeling defeated. I'd go on interviews and not get them, or I'd get to like basically the round right before they pick someone and they go with somebody else. And it was like, it's very hard not to get like discouraged on that, but like you just have to keep going. And to me, like, I'm very fortunate with the boss I have currently with Santini, who very much wants me to be a mentor and wants me to be hands on. And so I think it all worked out in the end because you are where you're supposed to be now. Erblin is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing and like building this awesome career for himself in this company. And it's like you just have to also remember to stay positive and lean on the people you like met with. You know, I call Lisa for advice all the time too.
I think it's also really important to point out that an assistant job is a highly competitive, coveted job. People will kill to be an assistant. in a studio or at a production company, and especially at an agency. And being an assistant and running the desk of an agent, you hear everything. You know where the money's at, you know who's working, you know what projects are being packaged together. You know every single thing that's going on in the industry. And when I graduated law school, my fellow law school students who were graduating with me, some of them went in and started in the mailroom at William Morris Agency and stuff like that. Like, these are not jobs to sneeze at. So I think,
And it's hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. And Erblin can attest, he's seen me get stressed out at times for these jobs where it's just like it can be very overwhelming. And like for me, I think one thing you have to carry through is like your reputation, but also you're representing, like, I'm representing my boss in a
yes,
lot of these emails. And then not only him, but I'm representing his clients, because sometimes I'm speaking on behalf of his clients, which, I mean, for him, my particular boss, he does a lot with music, but musical clients. So he has a lot of big name clients that I'm having to represent and or deal with their assistant or deal with them directly. And I'm having to represent all of it, and it can get very overwhelming and stressful. But you just have to remember, like, anyone would kill for these positions. And I'm very fortunate to be able to sit on conversations with producers, with the lawyers between the production company and the client and my boss, and hearing them negotiate and learning how to negotiate everything. So it's just crazy.
I think it's also, you brought up a really good point that every email you send out has repercussions on not only your boss, the client, potentially the lawyers involved, potentially the agency or the production that's involved. That we have to remember that when we're in the workplace, we are a unit, we're a cohesive unit. And so even though Katy, might think, oh, I'll just shoot off that quick email, it has legal repercussions and strings that are tied. Erblin loves all my string analogies. Strings that are tied to everything, that you need to think bigger than just yourself and what you want your actions reflect on everybody and have consequences. So I think that's a tremendous learning lesson at this, from this conversation here.
And like we were talking, when I kind of mentioned like keeping that network and how you have to keep a positive attitude, you never know who's going to hear. Mason is small, but I can tell you that the industry, it may seem big, but it is small, and they hear
Everybody knows everything.
everything. They'll know things like with the CEs. Before I left, I had a couple of creative executives at Atlas that I talked to and got advice from, who came from big agencies. And he said it really does matter. He now has agents that call him and he will not take their calls because they were not nice to him and treated him poorly. And now they want to get in touch with him because he's making these big films and he's doing these things, but he doesn't want to do them. He doesn't have to work with them. There's other actors out there. So like you just have to remember all of that like plays out.
Yeah. Okay, so I know we're pushing on your time limit, Katy. So what I'd like to do right now is go to questions from the students and audience, and then I would like to come back to talk about Erblin's new feature and everything that you've done, the producing labs that you've gone through at Rotterdam and Berlinale, and how you've raised all this money by yourself, which is amazing. So first, can I ask for some questions, and if our audience will remember to unmic yourself and put your face on so we can see you while you ask your question. Oh, am I gonna have to call people out?
Hi everyone, it's Lori.
Hi, Lori.
So good to see you both.
It's so good to see you.
So thinking about just hearing all the different stories that both of you told, you've shared the frustration, the disappointment, and Katie, you emphasize this, like, you got to keep going. But how do you get yourself out of that rut? How do you keep yourself motivated, even after all of those rejections, Erblin, and like, how do you do that?
Well, I guess, okay, so I can go first. For me, the positive, like, to keep going, it's just knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that this is what I want to do. This is what's going to make me happy. And I had a really good support system, both in and out of the industry. I had my friends in the industry that I could go talk to and be like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, we'd be like, no, just trust me, keep going. Or I could lean on my family and other friends outside who would say, no, like, you can do this. I know it's hard. But just remembering that, like, 2 or 3 months is nothing in comparison to, like, the whole career you have in front of you. And that if this is what you want to do, you have to just go for it. It's going to get hard.
Erblin?
Just keep swimming. No, seriously, it ties back to the whole thing. Like when I started, at Mason, I was very clear and very vocal about what I wanted to do, and that was direct. And I wanted to do it very fast. And I wanted to learn everything I could in a very short period of time. I was only there for like 2.5 years with my internship, which I did outside of Mason. But you have to kind of tell yourself all the time, uh, keep going, because the whole light at the end of the tunnel, yes, but it's hard. It's not easy. I'm doing that right now. Like, and it's things that, keep reminding yourself of, the accomplishments you've had, of the things that are important to you, and what really matters. Like, what do you want from this? The whole, I've had a really hard time getting this film off the ground, because of the topic and, being in Kosovo. But knowing that deep down there's people that need my film, that's what keeps me going. And that was what kept me going when I was, that little Erblin that had a dream. I wanted to fulfill that dream, and I kept pushing for it. And I know this might sound crazy to some people right now to just keep going, but really it's that simple. You have to, voice it out all the time. Don't say, I would like to do this or it might be nice. No, just say, I want to all the time, 100% of the time, because the people that are around you, when they listen to you talk, they they have hundreds of other people that want to do the same thing. And if they hear, I might or I would like to, they're not going to take you. They're going to take the people that are like, I'm going to do this. And I've been sticking to that mindset and it's been working out for me. And I tell it to everybody, it's that simple. But you just have to believe in what you want. And I think if you don't know the heart of what you want, I think it's going to be hard. That's the thing. If you're really passionate about something, you're going to continue no matter what. But if you're like not sure that this is what you want, then of course you're not going to do it.
Well, and this is an industry of entrepreneurs. And even though Katy is actually an employee of an agency, you still have to view your own career and your own career branding as an entrepreneur would, and navigate that through and collect as much information and relationships as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a business. It really is a business. It's about building the brand. And, you know, I today, because like I started a company here in Kosovo, and with the same name that I had when I was back in America. And I got an office because my film started, taking off and we were in early pre-production and I needed a space. And then went right away, ordered a huge Lightbox logo that you can't even see. Well, I'm just gonna take it off
Oh
because
my God, turn it on.
I haven't hooked it up yet. But
I love that.
now with the whole COVID thing, I had to give up my office and move out of it because I got it in a week after everything shut down. But to remind myself, I just put it up here because I was like, I still have to keep going so that I one day can light this up and continue my film, even though it's hard because everything is like shut down.
I also have to give you some serious props, Erblin. You do everything to the nines.
Yeah.
Everything's perfect. You really get marketing, you really get branding, you really intuitively understand the business and you don't get hung up on, I know you say, you're in like a COVID funk or whatever, but really you don't really get hung up on things. You're very industrious and you always take a moment to be annoyed or upset about something, but you always move forward and you always do the best you can. And
Yeah,
so
I
does
mean,
Katie.
we have to. I mean, you have to, even though like I haven't done, like paperwork and things like that that I was in the middle of doing, applying to more funds and writing grant money. I walked into Giovanna's office one day to do the Princess Grace application, and I was like, I don't want to write anymore. It's just so much writing. And Giovanna just looked at me and was like, welcome to the rest of your life. They're like, I don't know how old they are, but um, they were like, I still write grants and I have to do it every day. It's part of our job, it's part of our life. And I still, that's what I'm doing. Every month, every week, I have to keep writing grant because we depend on other people's money. And if you don't write stuff, they're not going to be able to evaluate or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff out there for films to get funded and stuff like that, and that's what I'm doing. But even though I can't do that right now, I've been doing gardening and all this stuff that's still gonna pay off for my film because I'm supposed to film in my house.
Okay, Katie has 6 more minutes before Katie is off her lunch break. They have to go back to work. So is there anybody that has a question for Katie?
I have a question for Katie.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, let me start my video. Okay.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so my question was, did you have any advice on finding like the PA jobs that you did undergrad, then and also like selling yourself when you have very little on your resume, and then also like any advice for what else we could do during undergrad to make our journey successful when we graduate?
Yeah, of course. So for me, my path's a little different. My for starting PA, the best advice I have is just to say yes. Like just say yes to everything and anything that comes across your plate. Um or comes across to you. But for me, I started literally saying yes to working with Lisa for free. And our very first film lab that was shot in Herndon. And from there, I met Hans, and he had sent out an email probably at like 11 o'clock at night one night. I was like, hey, we need people to come volunteer their time to work on 13. This like, we didn't even know we didn't even know the title. He was just like, it's Ava DuVernay. She just did Selma. We have this film. We need someone to come volunteer for the week. And I was the only one who was like, yep, I'll go. I'll come volunteer and do stuff. So say yes, even if it's free work. Like for you, you're not going to get paid. But from there, that's where I met him. And then he was like, oh, she does really good. There's a master class that was filming in DC and they needed an additional PA. So I got hired. And what they didn't tell me was that I was on hold, which meant I was coming in for the one day, but then I wasn't really going to be working unless they really needed me the rest of the week. But we were in this very unconventional theater space where we couldn't walk in certain areas because the theater was still holding shows. And I was the only one who learned on the very first day all the back fast paths to all the different areas we were using. And because I had learned it so well, they had to keep me on because then I had to teach all the new crew how to get around. Um, that's kind of how I started. And it was just finding ways to make myself useful. And then I met someone who was like, I'm dropping off these director chairs. And they're like, oh, I was like, oh, how are you? Like, we're just chatting. She goes, hey, I'm a PA. Here, give me your info. There's another set coming into town. And so that's how I met another PA who was a little bit higher ranking than me in the system, but she was in the inner crowd for all the big stuff that came in. So when things came in, I did them. And like there was one time she texted me at like 3 in the morning, or she called me at like 3 in the morning. I was like, hey, we need you to drive to Herndon right now. It was for, why am I spacing on it? Jason Bourne, the new Jason Bourne movie. We had a PA dropped out. Can you be here in 20 minutes? And I said, yes, I can. And I got in my car and I rode, like, and got there as fast as I can. So, like, the best advice is to say yes to everything, even if it's free, because you never know who you're going to meet. I did commercials at first, but that's how I kept meeting all these different PAs, because the PA world in DC is very small and very tight. But once you're in, and you'll meet everybody and they'll start handing off jobs. Did that answer your question?
I will second everything Katie said. Every job I've ever gotten pretty much has come from me working for free first. Not just when I was starting out, but I still work for free on certain projects. If I am excited about them and I think that they're going to lead somewhere, or if I just think it's going to be fun and enjoyable and something that I might like to do. And I think that's kind of the balance that you have to evaluate is, what can I learn from this position or this opportunity? What relationships can I build from it? All of those, even though they may not have a monetary value attached to them, all of those have value, sometimes equal to the actual amount of money that you're being paid. So it's a balancing act and figuring out what you need to do to grow yourself and your career.
Yeah, and I also just say yes to any job that you're given on set. So like you need me to go run crafty. So you need me to work until midnight going to different stores buying and piling up my car full of food and water and drinks and drive it to DC from Virginia. Okay, I'll do that. Just give me the petty cash and I will, no problem, as stores are closing, go shopping for you and then be back and ready to work at 6 a.m. the next morning.
Or
You just have
sit
to say yes to
fire,
the jobs that no one wants to do. What'd you say?
or sit fire watch for 3 days.
Yeah, you have to do the jobs no one wants to
Just
do, because then
in the
they're gonna say,
car.
yeah. I
Yeah,
have a few more minutes too.
those jobs need to be done. Someone's got to do them. And,
Right.
when you're starting out your career, you start at the bottom. That's just the way it works. I did it.
Right.
And I'd still be a PA if it was a great opportunity for me. I mean, I never view myself as too good to be doing something.
Yeah, and like do it well. So if you're doing crafty, make sure that is done and is done to a T, and that it looks good and it's constantly filled. And that, oh, does someone need tea or water? Go to set, carry a bunch of waters, and go to the crew and say, "Hi, do you need a water? Here's a water. Do you need something else? Here's a snack." Do you know what I mean? Carry it on you, because someone will ask. Always keep pens, black Sharpies, and like gaffer's tape on you, and you'll be good. I have some time for like maybe two more questions, and then I have to jump.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Tiffany, that was a good one.
I do have a question. Let me turn on my camera. Can you see me now? Oh,
Yeah.
hello everyone. Hey. So my question is for Katie and Erblin together. Did you have something in mind or like a job in mind when you graduated, or did you just start working on finding your job after you graduate? And I have another question for Erblin about BINI. First of all, good job in BINI. I've watched it multiple times. It's a great film. Have you or did you have in mind that you want to submit it to the student Oscars, or just like after finishing it, you start submitting it to different film festivals, then you submitted it to the film Oscars, to the student Oscars?
Go ahead, Katie.
I actually, before I met Lisa, was going to be an editor. So when I first started, I was like, I'm going to be an editor. I really like it. I like the way you can manipulate it to tell a different story, which I think everyone should take editing, no matter what department or what concentration you want to be in. It helps teach storytelling. Um, so then I met Lisa, and then that's when I was like, okay. And then I started freelancing. And when I graduated, I was like really facing the fact of like, being a PA is hard. Like, it is hard, and it's 12, 14-hour days of you on your feet in the heat in all inclements of weather. Like, I've been in torrential downpours and thunderstorms, and it was me facing the fact of like, this is going to be my life for the next 2 years or so. But I always knew I wanted to be a producer, and then it just, as things progressed and I learned different positions, is kind of where I've learned where I wanted to go. So in a sense, yes, when I graduated, I knew what I wanted to do and how to do it, but working on Wonder Woman just exposed me to different routes I can take to where I want to be.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
I just, like I said, I went with the whole I want to direct, and I didn't want to do anything else. I chose to do Uber because that was the only thing that allowed me to still have my schedule and go and write. I wrote my first feature film, and I would go and work in the morning, and then I would take off 5 hours and go to the library every day and write. And then I wrote my first feature in like 3 months. And it took a whole year to then, do drafts and all of that other stuff. But it took me 3 months to write it from beginning to end. And it's about taking that, time. If you're living with parents, you can do that for free. You don't even have to work. But because I was living in LA and I still needed to pay rent and feed myself, I chose to do something that gave me liberty. I turned out jobs. I got a job at Wonder Woman as well. I got called and I freaked out because I was like, I want to work, but then I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get stuck doing these type of jobs. Because again, in this industry, it's all about branding. And once they know you as one thing, you're always stuck as that thing. And for me, even when I was in school, I would, I started feeling a little towards the end when, every senior film would do projects, and I thought I had proven myself by then, but nobody was inviting me on their sets. And I was like, why don't I ever get invited on people's sets? And they were like, well, because I'm directing and you're only a director, so I'm not going to invite you to direct my movie. And I'm like, oh, like we feel bad to put you in any other position. So it's about branding yourself. And I didn't want to start, working. I even got offered a assisting job for some actor that I didn't know who it was because they don't tell you until you get the job. But I turned it down because then I didn't want to be known as the assistant or whatever. So it's all about sacrifices, in my opinion. Um, if you can live off of ramen noodles and chase your dream until it becomes what you want it to be, then do it. But if you want to, have all the best stuff and go on vacations and go out and do, have party, then you have to work something that gives you all of those things. But for what I wanted in this short amount of time, I didn't want to wait until I'm 40 to direct my first feature film and work up my ladder. I wanted to do it now because I feel like I'm ready, and I want it. I know I can make it happen. And this was the route for me, just kind of going out there and doing it. I didn't have a plan at all. I was just meeting people, and then one thing led to another, and then yeah.
Erblin, how many films did you direct in undergrad?
With BINI, it was 10 short films, which some are still not finished, but I have 10 in the can, I can say.
I know there's one I've been
Last
asking
minute.
to cut for years. But I think that's really important to point out too, is that you were directing films, writing and directing them outside of the classroom too, right?
I love babies. Like, you have no idea. I've been telling my husband, like, maybe this is the time for me to get pregnant.
What is that?
Hi, baby. You are so cute. Oh my goodness. Yes, you are so cute. Yeah, so I will stop.
Who is that?
I don't know. But it was fun anyway.
In terms of, I'm assuming we won't take the full hour, but like in terms of like how things are going, you need any anything from me? Do you think things are heading in the right direction?
They're all muted. I don't get it.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Is it Katie maybe?
No, I'm muted.
Oh, I have no idea what that is. Anyway, Erblin, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Lisa?
Oh, you were talking about all the films that you directed in undergrad. Bye,
I have
Katie.
to go.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Continue reality's office.
Katie.
I think you were talking before it all cut off, but his next question was about the festival, the Student Oscar. That's another thing that after I was done with the whole festival run and after I had met so many different people through the Student Academy Award, I wish I had done a strategy beforehand. And it all starts literally from script because you know the idea and you know automatically what type of film it is and what type of festival it can go to. This whole
I will have to say, from the beginning, when you just pitched me the story prior semester, was already tagging it as that's an Oscar film. You can
which I never believed.
What?
Which I never believed because I was thinking, from day one we always hear Sundance and all of this other stuff. But the student Oscar, I applied the day of the deadline, like June 1st, 2018. Yeah, that was the day the deadline was up, and I got a call from Giovanna, I think, asking me if I had applied yet, and I was like, oh, yeah, that thing. Sure, They were like, it's free, you should do it, and then I went and just applied, and it ended up being the one application that I really needed, because I had applied to over 100 festivals.
Very similar to like Adan, where
And
that kind of coached them through and
I don't know where it's coming from.
but also return better. It sounds like you guys are heading in the right direction. Obviously, things are not gonna change in a matter of like weeks, but
Do we know what that is?
I can't tell. The only microphones that are open are yours and Erblin's. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I'm still figuring it out.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. I am. Yeah, I think that's just at the end of it. We take that festival strategy workshop at Fabs. I think it's every production fair or tied to it. I can't remember, but I know I've been to at least two. And I should have paid more attention. But it's about creating a strategy. And had I done it over again, I would have applied to just the student Oscars at first, because after you get into that and then you're nominated, which is a very prestigious thing, all the other festivals want you. And that's what happened to most of my other fellow nominees, because I'm friends with all, well, 4 out of the 7. And I see their track record after the student Oscars. It's most of those festivals that I got rejected prior to getting into the student Oscars. So I just wish I had done it a little bit different, because I got rejected by all those big festivals first and then got into the student academy, and then anything after that just took me. It's because festivals want films that have endorsements, and I had this endorsement from the academy, so I just wish I had kind of done it in an order, but I was just applying left and right because I was super excited. I wanted to get it out there. And then, again, lesson learned. Now I know, if I ever wanted to go to grad school and do another film, I could still go to the student Oscars if I do that. But I don't think I'll go to grad school.
So, Erblin, tell us about your first feature. And we know that you spent 3 months just getting your first draft, and then months and months after that with drafts and notes and rewrites and strings, tying strings. And um, then what? What did you do? You just like started on autopilot, it seems like, just going out there and making it happen. It was amazing. What did you do?
Well, after I had gone to all the festivals, I found out that it's really important to have a feature, because with a short, unless it's a winner,
To say, I say that in all my classes, but whatever. Go ahead.
uh, because with a short film, unless it's like a winner or had won an Oscar, not even a student Oscar, then things start happening, and you'll get an agent, and then they'll give you scripts that other people have written that you can tweak and direct, and then your career takes off. But unless you have one of those shorts, even having one that has gone to all these festivals and has won other awards, the student production award from the Emmys, it's still not enough to get you out there and launch a career. And I realized that, okay, I need to have a feature film in order to be taken serious. And there's 2 ways to do it, because a feature film automatically makes you commercial, because then you can sell that. It's a product. And nowadays, with all these streamers and all these different platforms, anything sells. I mean, if you just go and place anything in Netflix, it's probably terrible. It's just content. And if it's over an hour, it's, but if you want to be like me and have a long lasting career, it has to be good first feature, because then you want to make your second and your third, and you don't want to get stuck making those B movies. So I started writing again, just like BINI. That's another thing that I guess I should mention, is something that comes from your heart, that's really, really personal, that you really, really know and understand in its entirety. And I decided to go again with a personal story, and it's based on my life as a teenager. And
I think it's that moment where we have to give a little pitch.
oh no, I haven't pitched in a while, but it's a film about first love, um, and about relationships between that first love that you meet, but also the relationship between your parents and how that kind of shifts. Because when we fall in love for the first time, we seem to forget everything else, and we push everybody else that is close to us, our parents, away in order to be with that person that we think is the love of our life. And
It's
that's
like
what
a
the film-
ship leaving the dock.
Right. And, you know, that happens to most of us, I think, when we're teenagers or when we fall in love the first time, whenever that is. And in this case, the characters fall in love online. And when the day comes for them to finally meet, the lead character, Ben, wins the opportunity to move to America. And now he doesn't want to move because he wants to meet their first love. And yeah, so he's caught in this dilemma whether to go to America, the place he always dreamed to live at, or to meet the love of his first love. So
Oh my God, what's gonna happen?
you have to watch
Don't
it.
give away the ending.
Right. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna write something that. So there was a little bit of strategy behind, why this story. It's because it's personal. A lot of people speak the language of love, and this is a queer film. It has, two boys that fall in love, but first love, anyone can relate to that. Two people wanting to meet and they can't meet because now one of them has to move, and anyone can relate to that. And the family dynamics and all of that. So it's not just an LGBT film, it's a film that anyone can understand and learn from it. And also, I didn't want, I still plan on making BINI a feature film one day, but, you know, I will not have millions of dollars of budget to do my first feature as a director debuting, because BINI is a film, and I'm not, I can't. It's going to be a much bigger project, so I stuck to something. I stuck to something that's a lot more contained, and a romance film, and it takes place mostly in the house. And yeah, so there was a little bit of strategy that I was like, I can make this film with a lot smaller budget because now I'm also thinking as like a producer, and but something that I could also sell, and it has a niche audience, but also it's universal, which is love. So, and then I wrote it in three. I started writing fall, like September of 2018. So it's gonna be 2 years since I started this fall. And then by March of 2019, I applied to a fund in my home country because I'm gonna film it here. And I got it, which was 150,000 euros.
So this is where I'm going to insert a little class information.
Mhm.
For anybody who's been in my business class or my producing class, I mentioned, but this is where we're going to learn how it works. So other countries, not the US, but I don't know if it's every country, but most other countries have a film commission for the country. And those countries fund the film commission with money that they in turn will grant out to filmmakers and artists from their country for money to be spent in their country, and oftentimes to kind of highlight the artistry and the culture of the country as well. So even big filmmakers like Pedro Almodovar gets money from the Spanish Film Commission. And so people outside of the US who are making films can tap into these resources. And Erblin started with his home country, which is Kosovo, and their film commission.
Right, and I think to tie it back to what I was also saying a little bit earlier, that I didn't want to wait all those years because we don't have these public funds in America, and I didn't want to work my way up and, you know, be a PA and all of this stuff until I finally meet somebody that will like my idea, and then, you know, invest in it, because they want, you know, in America, producers and big companies will only invest in somebody that has already proved themselves or shown a return on investment, because this is a business, and if they want to give you money, they expect it back double. And but if you have no track record like me, I don't have a film that has sold, then everyone's gonna be scared to give me money, and they're gonna have to take a high risk. And to be able to get to that level where they take a risk on you, it takes years of building those relationships. So I was not ready to wait, so I decided to come to Europe and do it this way. Do my first feature here, have it be successful, and then earn my trust with investors in America to fund my next feature. But it seems like now that I have already gotten funding in Europe, investors in America are like, oh, someone else has chipped in. They could also be more uh, willing to give to risk now that someone else's money is also in it, and they're not the first investor, because
Yeah.
that's the hardest to get. That first investor that puts in the money is like the risk taker, and then everybody else is like, okay, since someone is putting some, has to be something there. So I came here. So far, I do know that America is the only one that doesn't do public funding, and everybody else does. So in America, it's privately. You know, all the studios, they have their own money and they go through banks and stuff. Here, you know, it's the government puts aside uh, some money for culture, and film is one of them. And those are called public funds. And they have an application. Some countries have it 4 times a year where they give, because they have big funds. In Kosovo, we're still so small. Our whole budget of the entire country is 2 million for films. And out of those 2 million, they spread it out to, like, I don't know, I was one of 4 feature films, and then there's debut features and a bunch of shorts and documentaries and all kinds of categories. And I applied, but, you know, having that short film that was Student Academy nominated and all these awards and all, that's what got me the grant. Because even here or going to another country, they want track record. They want a resume with what you have done, because it's a country giving you money, and that money is also paid back. That's another thing. This is not a grant that you get and you just walk away, make the movie, and then that's it. It is up to a certain extent. You make the movie, but the moment it sells, the money that you make back, a percentage goes back to the public funds, and then, you know, it kind of separates with all the shares that everyone has in the film.
And the public entity also, not only did they get their investment back, but they also get a share of the profit on top of the investment back.
Right.
Yeah.
For Kosovo is they get profit up to 3 years after they have paid off the investment. So and it's, you know, divided by percentages. And the other thing is that you can go to as many countries as you want and do what they call co-productions. And I went to the closest neighboring country, Albania, and got another funding there for 40,000 euros. And it's split. So now I have a co-producer there, and they have to, so then every country has their rules, like a certain amount of money has to be spent in that country or with that country's crew. So I can spend it in Kosovo, but it has to be crew from that country, not from Kosovo, because the money has to go back to that country. It is used towards my film, but with their crew. So, you know, one thing that we do before we even apply for the funds is find the crew first and the people we want to work with. And then once we know that okay, now I have, let's say, a cinematographer in like, I don't know, Russia or Germany, and my main actor from Belgium. Now there's percentages for these higher level roles because, you know, cinematographer, composer, editor, these are all creative roles that, you know, changes the film, gives the film something from that artist. And those are considered high points in these countries. So if I have a main role that speaks German, that I can have a really high chance of getting German money because then they can have a star from Germany in my movie. So I've applied to Norway. They have a fund there that we're still waiting to hear back. We had applied to Denmark as well, but unfortunately we didn't get that one because the whole COVID thing got everything really complicated and they awarded only 4 films this year. I don't know if that's the reason why, but it was insane because I met the producer from Denmark 3 days. I had met her before, but we had decided to apply 3 days before the application. And you know you have something valuable when somebody for 3 days they put it together a whole application and find you um, an Oscar nominated sound designer to sign a deal to be part of your project and an actor um, and I can't remember what the other crew members were, but she did all of this and find distribution in Denmark and she hadn't even read the script. That's how much she believed in my story just from the pitch, which is another thing. Like, you have to prepare your pitch very well. You have to know the story in order to do a good pitch. And then, you know, I don't know what went wrong, but I'm sure COVID had something to do with it. And we didn't get that one. And unfortunately, once you don't get the public funding, you can't work with that producer anymore unless you pay them out of your own pocket because they get paid from that money they win from their country. So that was the bummer for me because I really wanted that co-producer to be part of our project and the crew that she had brought in. Oh, the editor as well. I was supposed to, after we shoot in Kosovo, was supposed to go to live in Denmark for 4 months and edit the film. And then who knows where I would have gone to do the color. And that's what I meant earlier. Like, I don't plan anything anymore because in this industry, in this business, everything is so loose. You never know where you're going to end up. I had dreamed to live in LA for as long as I lived in America, which was 10 years. And then I moved to LA, and a year later, now I'm back in Kosovo living again because my movie brought me here. And then I was supposed to go to Denmark, which now is not happening. But it just, you never know. Um, and that's another thing. Once BINI started getting to festivals, I wish I was in my parents' house and I hadn't moved yet because I would have had more liberty to go to all these festivals. It's really important, not just your film to play, you have to be present there because you never know who you're going to meet and you never know who you run into and the events. Go to the
Marketing
parties.
yourself. You're marketing yourself and just making these relationships, this entire industry. I know we always hear it, and it kind of sounds one way, but when you're on the ground doing it and you really realize, you know, I know who to call. If I need something in South Africa, I've got people to call. If I need something in Germany, I know who to call. We were looking for gaffers and makeup artists. I called my friend who
Right.
is the DP on one of my films, and she lives in Berlin, and she recommended somebody in Sarajevo, and they're going to help us find crew. And so it's just, you always really need to be able to reach out to these people. It's such a good lesson that you're learning and teaching here now.
Right. I mean, and like I said, just a year ago, I was in LA doing Uber. And then I came to Kosovo with whatever savings I had left, came here, and I started a company because you have to have a company in order to apply to these funds. And it's free to open a company. It's just literally a name and it figures it's somewhere that it's a real thing. And then I applied, and the next thing I know, I have now 200,000 euros under the company that is going to go towards my film, and still applying to more. And then from that, the film fund is now sending me to all these different festivals and all these different labs so I can go and continue the network and continue the, the the network and to sell my film. So I went to a lab for producers because my producer at the time couldn't go, and I since I'm the owner of the company, I went, and it ended up being one of my best experiences so far because I learned so much for producing, which was an extension of what I learned in Lisa's class, but also how to do it in Europe because it's completely different. I mean, it's most of the same stuff, it's just different laws. And I ended up, having stuff with lots of contracts that once I was looking at them, I was, all the stuff from class and doing it at Film Lab and doing all that stuff came back. It was what was like a few days apart from me and Katie that texted you and was like, thank God we learned contracts because it saved my life.
Funny, both of you texted me literally in the same week, like, thank God you taught me contracts.
Right, because it's legal stuff. You don't want, I don't want to owe somebody those 200,000 euros. I need to know what I'm signing myself for. And yes, I want to get a movie done no matter what, but I need to make sure that I'm not walking off of this with a bunch of debt and, I don't know, go to jail. So reading all that stuff and understanding it, understanding the language, and then I started drafting my own stuff because there's also negotiation. Those contracts are not set in stone. You can go back before you sign and you can ask for things to be changed if you don't like something and add a new article in a contract that says something more specific to what you want. And I would always go back to Lisa and say, hey, could you draft me a paragraph?
I think we have to mention the act of God.
Yes.
Here we are.
Right. I had someone translate my script because every time you apply to all these different countries, the script has to be in that language. And I had someone translate my script, and I was giving them my contract for my company that I have, the standard one for everyone. Just the position and some terms change depending on what they're doing. And it was one of those people that wants to read it all, and that's great because you need to read what you're signing. And he was like, I don't get it. What is act of God? Like, what could that be? And I called Lisa and I was like, could you explain to him? Because he just wants to know. And then you said something like a natural disaster, or, because we were afraid that they were taking it religiously, or I don't know. But
change the wording to an act of nature.
Act of nature.
It's a legal term of art, act of God. You see it in contracts all the time, but really what that means is like there's a worldwide pandemic and you can't shoot, and Lynn and I were laughing about it at the time, like we don't even need to really put it in there, but it's just good to have it just in case. And then here we are.
It was the month before all of this went down. So yeah, knowing all this legal stuff, even as a director, is good because now I'm doing producing and all this other stuff. Like when I came to Kosovo, one of the jobs, one of the only gigs I did really in the past 2 years, was producing producing a short film, and it was for a previously Student Academy Award winner that now does visual effects for Disney, and he just did Frozen 2. And I got put in touch with that person through the Student Academy Award officials. They put us in touch. They're like, oh, they have a story that takes place in Albania. You're Albanian. You guys should meet. He flew from San Francisco to Kosovo to meet me. And then, I pretty much to show him the ropes of how you do film in Kosovo. And then he realized that everything's so different from America. He was like, can you do it? And I'll just give you the money. So he gave me a budget, which was 15,000 euros. And I took it and broke it down. Everyone was paid, and including myself, which is how I'm still surviving. Everything is a lot cheaper in Kosovo, so don't think I got all 15,000 euros. And yeah, it was a great experience because had I not done Film Lab, I would have never known how to orchestrate that short film. And I think that's the one thing that was great out of FABs was being able to do these film labs and seeing how a real life, production happens. Because learning it in class and talking about it and doing those exercises can only go so far, but the film labs really put things into perspective and put us out there. And we would like if something went wrong, we all freaked out about it, but then figured out how to fix it because that's what you have to do in real life. And yeah, so I don't know. We're kind of going in and out of things. I don't know if you want anything more specific.
I see that Mohammed asked you how much BINI cost. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking about budgets because I was one of those people that asked at a festival once. I can't remember where it was. They were doing a Q&A, and then I just raised my hand and asked, and then someone afterwards was like, "You don't ask that question," because there's so many different ways to get money, and people literally go through hoops to get money, and talking about it sometimes can get awkward. But for BINI, it was literally student loans. I I priced it out together with Lisa, and we wanted to shoot on an Arri Alexa, and we wanted to have a full crew, and everybody was getting paid, and then we asked how much things were cost, and then my now producer for the feature film from Kosovo was my DP. He also did some producing by getting all the crew for BINI, and he would get things, quotes for things, and then we came to a conclusion that it was going to cost somewhere around 20,000. I went a little over that, few thousands over that, but 20,000 is where BINI fell into.
And that includes post and music. And, yeah.
And
I know you did your sound design and color was profesh.
right, yes, and that's one thing that I wish Amanda was on. Learn sound and learn the importance of sound. You don't want to sit in a theater with surround sound and hear all these hums and all these noises that are not supposed to be there. That's the number one reason why a film doesn't get into a festival. They don't want to make people bleed, blood come out of people's ears when they're sitting in the audience. I've seen so many short films that literally don't even have a story, but everything is like beautiful and great sound design, and it's in a A-list festival. I'm like, why? It's because it's professionally made and has A-list stars in it. But then you can have the best story and the best acting and the best short film, but terrible sound, it will not play. It will not play just because of technicalities. So investing in the sound is one of the most important things in a film. And that was, in the sound designer that did BINI is doing sound design on Stranger Things. Did you know that?
Yes.
So, I mean, she was also already doing a bunch of Hollywood stuff before, but she was from Canada and had just moved to LA when we got her to do BINI for very little money because she just wanted to do it. And now she's doing sound design for Stranger Things. So it's like Katie said, keep these connections, keep these contacts because you never know where they're going to go next.
Well, and I will say how we got Katie Halliday, which is the sound designer for BINI. I'm friendly with one of the Emmy award-winning sound designers from Game of Thrones. So when Erblin was finishing BINI, I was like, let me call the Game of Thrones sound designer. Why not? Right? Let's go to the best. And I sent her the cut of BINI and the, information about the film and said, I know this is a little smaller than you're usually working on, but, if you're free, I'd love you to be able to do it. And, or do you have an assistant that you could recommend? And the Game of Thrones sound designer considered it for a while and then said, you know what, I'm not on Game of Thrones right at the moment, and I wanted to use this time to do some stuff for myself. But talk to Katie Halliday, my one of my assistants. She's really good, and that's how we got her. It's all word of mouth, and the word of mouth always comes from doing an A+ job.
Right. And just the fact that she was her assistant
Right.
goes back again. Everyone starts as an assistant.
But
And
nobody's
now,
going to recommend an assistant that just does their job and sits there and
Yeah.
waits to be told what to do. It's the person that's taking
Right.
initiative that infuses people with confidence in their abilities, and therefore they get these amazing opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, because also Paula wants to keep that relationship with you and not send you someone that's bad, because then you would never call her again.
Right.
So it's all, it's all a chain. This industry, like Katie said, is so small. Everyone knows each other. I went to Tallinn, Estonia, where BINI screened for the last time, and then 4 months after that, I went to Rotterdam, in the Netherlands, and I saw most of the same people there. And then when I went from Rotterdam to Berlinale in Berlin 2 months after, it was then I started, making friends. I saw all of those people again, including like people from Japan and all over the world, America too, that I would see in every single one of these big festivals. It's such a small world.
And I'll give another example of networking and how that pays off. So Erblin called me from Berlin and said, hey, I heard that Kim Utani, the head of Sundance programming, is going to be at Berlinale. And Erblin said, Lisa, I know that you and Kim are friends, and I want to meet Kim. So I know from when I sent BINI to Kim for Sundance review, Kim emailed me back and said, I love Kosovo. I was there for a film festival. I want to promote Kosovo directors and Kosovo stories. So I know this now because I sent BINI to Kim. And then, so I emailed Kim and I said, hey, Erblin, the BINI director, is in Berlinale right now. He's there raising money for his first feature, I Love You More, which is a queer Kosovo story. And Kim wrote back and said, "Oh, great. I'm so happy to know about this film. I'll keep it on my docket and check back in on the progress," because the programmers, as Roberta Monroe, who was a Sundance programmer and was on the Visiting Filmmakers yesterday, as Roberta said, they know what films are coming down the pike, and they will reach out to you and start looking for these things. So after I emailed Kim, then Erblin ran into Kim at a party, I believe, and you guys talked, and Kim said, "Oh, great. Yeah, glad to know about. I Love You More, and very exciting." And just touching base with people and letting them know what you're working on is a really important part of the networking process.
Right. And also, don't forget, these are people. Because sometimes you get so excited, I'm there and things are moving, and I'm like, oh, I'm only here for a day. This is my only chance to meet Kim Yutani. I'm gonna go, and I'm thinking, we're gonna have dinner and become best friends. And she's gonna be like, you're gonna have the film at Sundance, or I don't know what my mind was thinking. And then I go talk to her, and it's just like, hi, hello, I'm friends with Lisa. Oh, I know Lisa, great. And then that's it. And then I went back and I was like, oh my God, she hated me. And I was like, Lisa, we didn't really get a chance to talk because it was a big crowd. But, she came with I met her through someone that already had emailed her, and it was like a recommendation. And give people time, because then I think a day or two later, she emailed us again saying, it was nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to your film once it's done. And that was like reassurance that, in that moment, um, there's hundreds of people trying to talk to her. And it was nice for her to just say, acknowledge that I said hi, but, I shouldn't expect, because I'm still learning myself with all of this navigation, a big hug and we become best buddies, like on the spot, just because Lisa put me in touch. It's still I have to meet her, get to know, like she doesn't know me and all of that stuff. So, but yeah, this whole past year has been crazy and lots of learning, lots of new things, um, and going to labs. There's, the one thing that I am so sad about that maybe now I should do it this year, was missing the deadline for the Sundance Labs last year for my feature film. And because these labs at these big festivals are the best way to meet people, and you're there not to know all the answers, you're there learning. And it's okay to ask all kinds of questions. It's okay to be like, how do you make a film? Or, at that point, in those type of environments, no one's going to judge you and be like, oh, you should know this. Why are you here? Because you're there as a lab fellow, and they're there to help you learn everything. And the producing lab that I went to in Rotterdam taught me so much. And now there was 69 producers from all over the world. I was the only director there, but now I can call myself a producer too after that. Um, I know all of these 69, 68, because I was the 69 producers all over the 31 countries. And we all have a group chat. I texted them the link to this earlier, and I said, if anyone wants to hear me talk about film, um, people are like, they'll text anything like, I need a location where there's fog or something. And then I was like, oh, it's always foggy in Pristina and Kosovo during the fall. And I sent pictures, and they're like, that's great to keep in mind. And then I need something, I don't know, in Korea, and I have producers from Korea, because you need to have these connections. And I got that from the lab. So it doesn't cost much to apply to labs. Like most is like $50 to $100, but it's an investment. And all you need is to write a script and anyone can do that from the comfort of your own home. I went to a library because I can't write at home, and wrote a film, and that now I'm just meeting people, traveling, seeing the world, and doing what I love. I don't know. It all takes from the script. So take that screenwriting class.
All right, we're nearing what probably should be the end. We've been on here an hour and 52 minutes. So I would love to have some more student questions. I see a lot of students.
If anyone has any questions.
What?
If anyone has any questions.
Does anyone out
So, I mean, I'll just write it down here, like, to, if anyone is interested to know more about the movie, or, that's my website, and you can find more about my feature film and where it's at and all that other stuff. You can all my social media that Abby put on the links to it, but all my social media is that. And if you have questions at a later time, feel free to message me. Just say you're from this Visit and Filmmaker thing, so I know, because I do get messages from random people that I try to answer, most of them, but if I know it's from Mason, then I'll, it's about networking, and if you have, if you say you're from Mason, then I'll bump it up. I don't know. Sorry, my English is getting worse now because I'm living in a place where there's not a lot of English speakers.
All right.
I have a question, but I want to give a chance to other students because like I've been asking questions all day.
Go ahead, Mohammed, because I know you're going to ask me if you don't ask Erblin. So please ask Erblin.
Okay, I'll do that. So I'm so interested in BINI's experience because I'm doing something similar to that. I'm working on my senior thesis right now, and it's about my hometown as well, Palestine. I'm telling my grandpa's story, and we're gonna shoot in Jordan, in another country internationally. And I'm trying to collect budget for that, so that's why I'm asking a lot of questions about BINI because I'm going through the same experience, I believe. I actually have BINI as one of my film references in my pitch, so and the story is similar too. So just in general, I just wanted to know more about BINI's experience, the challenges that you faced, maybe shooting in another country. Um, I don't know, just like any advices of making a short film for your senior thesis, senior film, and just like shooting internationally in general.
Well, there's lots of challenges because, again, I went to school in America and I learned to do things the American way. And I will say this. Well, I can't compare European countries because Kosovo is still not in the EU, and we've been an independent country for only 10 years now. So people are still coming out of isolation, and they don't really, there's not a lot of jobs. A lot of people don't work, and most people here are like, mid 20s, 30s. It's a very young country. So what I'm trying to say with that is that when I came here, the work ethic was completely different from America. In America, we're like, programmed to do things. We learn it a certain way and we follow the rules. We're rule followers. And, things work. Everything works. I've been on student sets that didn't even have budgets, my own student sets. That crew, other student crews worked a lot better than some people in Kosovo. And it's all about, that prior knowledge and the education they're getting from, whether it's George Mason or wherever in America. So coming to Kosovo to do a professional film was challenging because not every crew is specialized. Not every crew position is specialized. Most people are either directors or DPs. There's really no producers that have trained to be producers. And people don't really know what PAing is other than just helping around, which is what PAing is, but then there's no hierarchy. So that's the main struggle that I'm now with my company. I have a few projects coming in, non-film projects that is going to help train crew members starting from PAs. And because that was the biggest challenge with, we had volunteers in our set that were like 15-year-olds. And
Translator was 12.
She just turned 14, so now she's legal at work. But those were the challenges. And I don't know about Jordan or other countries that, their crew members, but that was the challenge with us in Kosovo. There's no thing as like extras. People are just actors here. Because there's no big production shooting where they need extras, where there's so many actors that need opportunities that are willing to go be an extra. Like in America, I was an extra in a few shows, and I learned, the production from being an extra, like a big production. I was on a show for ABC, and in Kosovo, there's not a lot of production, so people are not gonna wait around to, look for an opportunity as an extra. They're looking to be actors. So we had to hire just anybody to be our extras, and then they rioted in the film because they didn't understand how long they had to stay there, what it's like to shoot a movie. They're just like, I'm wasting my time sitting around, because there's just a lot of sitting around when you're setting up a shot and all the camera and all that stuff. And then you do a few takes and then you have to reset again. And they just didn't get it. They don't have the work ethic. So that's what was a big challenge with BINI. But I was lucky to have Lisa there. And I was lucky to have 3 other American crew members that came from Mason. And they all had the knowledge and they all had expertise to kind of guide everybody else. They were in key positions so that they could like guide the other people that were under them. And it's and what Lisa was saying, and I think is important to touch on that thing. We keep going back to this assistant and doing a good job, even if you're just bringing coffee. Because there was a girl that was in my set in BINI, that all she did was take care of the crafty table, but also bring stuff to the actors and me, because I forget to eat when I'm shooting. And she did it so great. I called her for the next project and the next project, and now she's moving up. And now she's key set PA, where she's taking care of all the other PAs for my feature film. And but it's about showing what you can do and doing it to the best of your ability, so then you can get called back again. But I hope that answers your question. There's just so much that went on with BINI that, there is I don't know if you saw the documentary. I don't know if you showed them the documentary.
I didn't show it. And Mohammed hasn't taken any of my classes yet, but Mohammed has come to me a number of times to ask about doing the production in Jordan.
I don't know. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of myself, you know, the fact that he doesn't even know you and he has come so many times to ask and inquire about things, it's a good sign that he is at least super interested in his own project. Which
Definitely. I mean, and the first day he came to my office hours, he said, "I want to be the next Erblin. I want to be the next. I want to make the next BINI." It was awesome.
well, you can try, but no, it's if you really believe on what you want to do, and if you really believe in yourself, and that's the hardest thing to reach. It was literally, it may sound crazy, but when was Berlinale? It,
February.
February, end of February. After all of this stuff that I've talked about, all my experiences in LA, and all the festivals and the academy and all of this stuff, I finally came to a place where I finally started to believe in myself during my experience in Berlin. And, you know, I'm happy and lucky that it happened this early in my career to find what it is that I really want to do or what I really want. You know, I knew what I wanted to do and was make movies and direct. But what are the stories I want to tell? And that's the hardest thing. You know, the reason why BINI gets mentioned all the time and not those other 9 short films I made, even though there's some that are pretty good and that have gone to festivals, it's because I didn't really know what the type of stories I wanted to tell. And I say this to a lot of people. That's what school was for me, shaping my voice and shaping the type of films I want to make as a storyteller. You can do that in school by keep making films, trying different things. I tried horror, I tried uh, psychological thriller, drama, and all kinds of genre like themes until I finally came to BINI, and it was personal stories with a social impact. And now that's what I'm doing. It's personal story again, but it has a social impact because there's literally only 3 people that are out and queer in Kosovo. And so, yeah, until I went to Berlinale and meeting people and talking about it, I had one of those experiences when I realized that this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I love doing. And you don't have to think or look into your notes when you're talking about your project, what it is about. You just kind of say it and you know that it's coming from the heart. That's it. If it doesn't, then you need to find another story. I think it's just you and me now.
Right, everybody else is.
Oh, thank you. I got the answer. Thank you.
Any other last questions? Erblin, what time is it there? 9 o'clock?
9 p.m. Yeah,
It's getting late.
it is. So thank you for.
Thank you, question mark.
Thanks for having me.
It was great. You gave such good information. Thank you so much.
I mean, there's just so much that is, you know, the filmmaking never ends.
Yes.
So keep doing it. Don't stop. If it really is what you want to do, just keep doing it. You'll get somewhere. Trust me.
And if people have questions, could they find you on Instagram?
Instagram, email, is best to keep track of things. Um, you know, go to my website, look at the stuff there, and then you can email me through my website as well. I will share the BINI documentary in a little bit because I'm doing some translation to Albanian so people here can understand it because most of it is in English. and you guys can see more what went down to make.
Oh yeah, Mohammed, the BINI documentary is kind of a not kind of, it is a behind the scenes and kind of the making of and leading up to it.
Nice. And where can I find it?
It's gonna be on my website shortly. I'm
Okay,
just translating it. Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you.
I'm so upset we didn't get footage of the riot, but next time
Let's hope there's no riot next time, Lisa.
we'll script a riot
No.
just for the BTS.
You're welcome, Alexander. For this.
Student and Joshua, Nathan, Cynthia, they're all giving you big thank yous. A+, Erblin.
Thank you. Even though I had a B.
Oh, stop it.
All
All
right.
right.
Thanks. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.